Hello, hello, hello. Hey, there we are. Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, I love that. I love that. Bring it on. We love the energy in the room. We promise we're not going to be violent up here, so if anybody would like to take the front row, there will be no physical abuse, only psychological. So please feel free to come up, take some seats here in the front. Welcome, everyone, to the Sundance Film Festival. Everybody having a good time? Wow, there's good energy in this room. I like it. I'm getting pumped right now. Welcome to the Canon Creative Studios. My name is Jay Holben. I am the technical editor for American Cinematographer magazine. I'm a producer and director in LA, associate member of the ASC. And germane to this particular panel, I wrote a little book called the Cine Lens Manual. I had to leave too much of a pause before that broke in there, so you guys need to get a little better with that. Every time I plug that, I need a little bit of love, all right? If you're unfamiliar with the book, go to cinelensmanual.com, check it out. No, you can do it right now. It's okay. We got time. Okay, nobody's taking me up on that. We have two fantastic filmmakers with us today. It's really about them. It's not about me, much to my chagrin. But we have Mohammadreza Eyni. Oh, I knew I was going to really botch that. And Sarah Whelden. Thank you very much for coming on. And really, I'm going to put a lot of work on you guys. So, Mohammadreza, I want you to introduce your film, Cutting Through the Rocks, a really heartfelt documentary to everybody. Tell us what it's about.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm Mohammadreza Eyni, and I'm an Iranian filmmaker. And our film is... The title is Cutting Through Rocks. It's about a woman who lives in the northwest of Iran, in a very remote village, and she's going to fight for her dignity and also for other women's right. So this is the story of our film, and I would love to talk about it more, maybe after Sarah.
That was a perfect segue. I couldn't have done that any better.
Does this work? Okay. I think we'll have lots of time to keep talking about our films. I'm Sarah Whelden, cinematographer for a short film called Sweet Talkin Guy, which is, I heard described today by one of our co-directors. Our directors are right here. Our co-director Spencer described it today as an anti-rom-com about a trans woman dating cis men. And it is more relevant to our time than I would like for it to be. But yeah, it's a funny movie with a little bit of darkness.
Fantastic. Those are the types of films that I love to see. Nice, funny movies with a little bit of darkness. It addresses my soul. So I'm going to get the technical stuff out of the way, and I know that we're going to talk about a lot more of the aesthetic aspect, but because this is Canon right here, and I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't plug Canon, would like to talk about what you used on your film.
So I worked on some documentary films, and for my last film, I chose to work with C700, and I was very happy about the quality of that camera, and also the lenses that came with that camera. So for this project, because we were looking for intimacy was so important for us. And I was looking for something similar to that camera, but with a smaller size. Because we didn't want to look like professional filmmakers, because we were filming in a village, and it was not familiar for them to have camera there, people making films. So I was very happy because C70 was so new at that time. So I was so happy that now we have this camera, because if Canon people didn't decide to have this camera, I would just invent or just make that camera for myself and the work that I was looking for. And I'm happy with results, because after watching the film and audiences just sharing their experiences watching the film, they're like, the intimacy is very important part of the film. And I think that the camera was so important to convey this feeling for us. And also the lenses, I decided to use compact lenses because you don't need to change all the time. You have, and love the appearance and the clear look of the lens, that just helping the visual language that we were looking for.
I've had that conversation a number of times with documentary filmmakers, and you were the director and cinematographer on this project, and your co-director is with us here today as well. Sarah, welcome. Sure.
Sarah
Give some love. There's a factor that I always considered working in documentaries, and that's the intimidation factor of the equipment, of the boom, of the large camera, of the lenses, and being in people's personal space. And it seems like with the C70, you found a perfect blend in a way to get the right image that you wanted without that factor. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's true, because for me, camera is like a friend. And I remember the times that I kissed my camera after getting the scene that I really loved. I was like, okay, thank you for being with me. Yeah, this is a personal connection that I have. And you know, as a cinematographer, you think about covering a scene, or just you want to get some footage. But with a camera that you are used to, sometimes you can get something better that you imagined. And actually, I'm just advertising the Canon here. So, but because I was happy about that. Also, first of all, I'm a director, and cinematography is under the umbrella of my directing role. So, as a director, what was important for me all the time was the story. So I was not about only covering. I was always thinking about what is the story of the scene and how I want to cover that. You know, especially in the crowded scenes with many people, and we have many scenes with a lot of tension. So at that time, I was happy that I was director and also cinematographer, because I knew the story, and I decided to only go with some specific characters at specific scenes, settings. So, and also, I'm the editor of the film with Sarah Whelden. We decided to edit the film. We had 8 sessions of filming. Each of them took, 1 month or 2 months. It was a very long process for us. We spent 7 years to make this film. So when I was filming, I was thinking about also the editing. What is necessary for this story? Which angles do I need to choose? And which characters I need to focus more? Because we were studying, after any sessions, we were studying our footage, and gradually we understood that what is our story is. It's not like a fiction film. You have a script and going to the set, and just you film in 2 months, 3 months, and that's it. But for our film and this documentary and many documentaries, I think story is going to reveal during the time. So the camera and cinematography goes hand to hand with the story and the time that we spend in the village, in the location of our film.
Which is the same is true for you as well, just a very different subject matter. I think one of the challenges in seeing your film is all of the different various looks that you had in that, trying to sell the idea of date after date after date and the struggle. Let's talk a little bit about that and what you used on Sweet Talkin Guy.
Yeah, so I know that Dylan and Spencer, my lovely co-directors, and I had a lot of conversations. We started prepping this short film way before you normally start prepping short films, and started having conversations. And I think they asked me at some point, like, oh, camera and lenses are you thinking? And Spencer mentioned, I own an Alexa 35 and some FDs. And I was like, okay, well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Like, I want to know what the story is and this and that. And so, we started talking more creatively and, looking into different things. And at one point, we started talking about, what if we shot on film? But, we had no money. So at some point it was like, I was like, wait, did you say you own an Alexa 35 and Canon FDs? Yeah. I was like, oh, let's use that. That sounds great. So it was an interesting, normally I will do a lot of testing. Thanks in large part to you, Jay, with various different lenses.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've added a lot of time to my workflow. But I'll normally do a lot of testing to figure out what lens is, speaking to us. I think emotionally first and foremost, and then from there, as we talk about different technical needs or creative needs that need a technical solution, we'll come up with a lens that sort of fits. But mostly it's following a sort of more clinical testing protocol that is largely outlined in your book. I'm just here to sell Jay's book. Oops. But anyways. Long story short, so we ended up landing on the Alexa 35 with the Canon FDs, and I'd shot on the K35s, and I'd heard the FDs shared a lot of similarity. So I went into the prep day where I did all my testing for this, and was really trying to understand how these were going to work for us, and I was thinking about a lot of the different challenges that we had, one of which, as you spoke to, was cutting together a film that feels like one long conversation, but takes place, for the most part, in 3 locations or 4 locations that are all very different from each other, and without it feeling like, it's afternoon on a boat to we're in an alleyway at a punk show, without that sort of like standing out in a way that would take you out of the story, because we really wanted to make sure everything we were doing was focused on, our characters, on Dylan, who is also the lead, and her 3 bad dates. So what we found with the FDs is, we knew we only needed a couple focal lengths. The film opens with a couple of wide shots that we used the 24 for, and then most of the film takes place in singles that we shot at 1.66, and the 55 really is such a magical thing. I mean, there's no other way to describe it. And as much as I think originally we maybe even talked about shooting it more at a 2.8, as soon as I opened them all the way up, it was like, there's no way. And what I started to realize is that was our ticket for sort of like pulling all these locations together. And I apologize to our amazing production designer who's here, at least at the festival. I don't know if he's, here he is, hi. And Sam did amazing work creating these spaces, and then a lot of them are in bouquet. But so I mean, that was sort of the journey with our film was trying to juggle all these creative ideas with our budgetary and practical limitations. Yeah.
There definitely is something very magical, especially that 55 aspherical and the FDs. And because they give me a microphone and I have a soapbox here, I'll get to say, Canon, please return. There it is. Alan hates this moment. There's so much love for the FDs and the K35s because of the character that they bring to it and the emotional aspect that they bring to it, which I think is something that you played with quite beautifully. And if I can take a second and say your performance is phenomenal, and the choice to not have dialogue, I think, is amazing. You played it so well. It's a beautiful. She deserved more than that. Come on. Okay, good. Oh, you're all suckers. In your experience, having dealt with the K-35s before and the FDs on this, did you feel like it was the same thing? Do you feel like it was a little bit different for you? And who did the rehousing?
They were GL Optics. And the biggest thing, well, so there's a couple things. When I've used the K-35s, I've leaned into the flares a lot. In this film, we didn't lean into the flares at all. So that was a big, obviously that's going to change everything as soon as there's light hitting the lens. One thing I noticed was there was like minimal to no chromatic aberration that like showed up in our film, which was very interesting to me. I did have, I think, an 8th Hollywood Blackmagic in front of the lens to help bring the contrast down, because they did seem a little more contrasty than I don't know. Yeah. I'm just asking Jay questions at this point. Tell me about I don't know. It's hard to say if they didn't necessarily not feel like K-35s, but they also kind of felt like their own thing. But then again, I was using them in their own way on their own film that I was lighting in its own way and with its own story. So I don't know. It's hard for me to make a one-to-one comparison beyond those little things I noticed.
Fair enough. Mohammadreza, you did a really beautiful job of turning the motorcycle that Sarah rides, which I'd like to get a little bit deeper into the story without giving spoilers. I don't know what you're willing to share, but I think it's an incredibly powerful and unique experience that you were able to document that I would not have imagined ever would happen. I don't know where the spoilers lie. I'm going to let you handle that and talk a little bit about that. But who the lead character is and why this motorcycle was an important aspect and how you visually played with that.
Maybe it's a time to explain more about this story. Sarah, our main character, is Sarah Whelden, is a woman who rides a motorcycle in a remote village that is a taboo. It's not possible for women to ride motorcycle because many men believe that women, girls, by riding motorcycle are going to seduce men, so it's not acceptable at all. In that setting, Sarah is riding motorcycle, and also she's going to empower teenage girls by teaching them how to ride a motorcycle. So this is very important because we have seen a lot of films, women riding motorcycle in many films, but here, because of the story and because it was something rare to see, we decided with Sarah Whelden, the director, so we need to find a unique language to portray Sarah on motorcycle and also the girls. If you watch the film, it's not easy task for our main character to do that. Because some very sad and tragic stories is going to happen because the society is not ready for teenage girls to ride motorcycle. So she has a lot of setbacks. I had a rehearsal for filming the scenes. I spent a lot of time with my phone taking a lot of pictures from people, from the village, to be ready for because it was a documentary, because it's about unexpected nature of the scenes and settings, to be familiar with what is going to be happen. And I studied the light, and I studied even the color of the skin of the people, and also the nature, very beautiful nature, and the roads. And we have a scene that teenage girls riding motorcycle. And because I was familiar with the light, I decided it was, I had to be very fast, getting some decisions very fast. And based on the photos that I got, I was ready that, okay, I know that what I like to shoot at the moment. We have also some aerial shots But regarding the story, we decided to only use aerial shots in a very specific places. We have only 2 aerial shots. Only when Sarah is riding motorcycle, but not everywhere in the film. And just a story asked us that now you need to have aerial shots. For the motorcycle scenes, we had an extensive talk with Sarah Whelden as a director to how we want to portray our main character on motorcycle. Motorcycle is a layer of the film. We have a lot of other layers, like the rights for girls to study. So we got the process of getting permission was so damn hard. So we got permission when we entered to the schools of the girls. So it demanded another way of filming the girls. For them, it was an opportunity to be visible. The core idea of our film is invisibility and visibility. So we as a filmmaker and I as a cinematographer, I felt responsible about we are going to give some sort of visibility to these girls. And they were so happy to be in front of camera. And for us, it was very beautiful to just telling their story. And also we have 2 court scenes. Also the getting permission was so hard, the process was so long, but we entered to the court. And I think that by covering the story of 2 women, one Sarah, the main character, and one Ferishte, the sub-character, we are going to tell the broader story. When we were in the court, we were sure that we are telling the story of many girls and at that region. So I'm talking as a cinematographer, that I felt that I have an advantage of filming the scenes that I haven't seen in many films coming from Iran. This film is happening in the northwest of Iran, and people talking in Azeri language. This 40% of Iranian people inside of Iran talks in this language, but it's very rare to find films with this language. Many films that you are going to watch are Persian, and this is also giving a voice to that underrepresented community. And regarding the invisibility of women and teenage girls, with Sarah we talked a lot with the co-director, how we can cover that. And Sarah, as a female director, she had a lot of feelings and experiences regarding inequality of women. And she helped a lot to how visualize the story, because it's a women's story.
Yeah, it's a woman standing up in an extremely patriarchal environment, which is extraordinary to see and timely, incredibly timely right now. I don't want to go down too far on that rabbit hole. Please go see his film. But what I do want to chat about a little bit to both of you is the nature of how the lens plays a role in storytelling, in visual storytelling, in the choice of a particular focal length or a particular stop in order to get a mood and an emotion. And I'll turn that over to Sarah first.
Yeah, sure. Hello. I think I spoke a little bit about how the extremely shallow depth of field played into one of our challenges in terms of cutting this together and creating a story that really centers on our conversation and not so much where they are. A second piece to that sort of like came up for me somewhat during filming was that there was like a dreaminess to it, and it was something that we spoke with Earl about, our focus puller, on the day. It's really, really not easy to hold anything in focus when you're shooting at T1.3, especially when there's a little bit of movement from, you know, our characters and the lens is pretty close to them. But something that sort of came out of that was this dreaminess in some of the, you know, first takes and practices, and I don't know, we kind of loved it. I mean, Spencer was always at the monitor, as Dylan was often either next to camera for eyeline, or in front of camera. So I think we ended up kind of talking about the dreaminess of it coming in and out of focus, and I loved the way it's sort of like, you know, we picked 3 dates to tell this story in 3 different locations, but it's not about 3 people. It's about, Dylan's character's experience in dating in general. And so the more this feels like something that just happens all the time, the more this feels like 100 dates, the better. And I think the dreaminess almost... it leans into this idea of like a memory where everything's a little bit imperfect, and you don't quite remember everything in perfect detail. And I think even just that little bit of like coming in and out of focus, and you know, shifting in the seat, these really subtle things I think made a huge effect on the visual language in that way.
Yeah. Regarding this story, again, I'd like to talk about this story. First of all, I always was thinking about how I want to cover the specific scene. For example, we have a scene that our main character, Sarah, is going to meet one of our sub-characters for the first time, that she is a victim of a forced marriage. And the parents are planning to have another sweetheart for her. We had a meeting, they had a meeting, 4 of them, the girl, the parents, and Sarah. For that establishing the family, we knew that we are going to follow the story of this teenage girls. Her name is Ferishte. So as a cinematographer and also director with Sarah, we decided to not enter our camera inside the house. We decided to shoot the whole scene behind the window. We just put the sound device there, and we shot the scene, and we decided to not enter to the house because this was a private setting for them. They were okay to just film, but for us as filmmakers was like, you know, we're like audiences seeing this scene for the first time. So we decided to not go inside, getting just, you know, close up of the characters. We thought that it's not relevant for doing that. So the lens that we used was being outside of the window, but having them, and now we are happy about the result. Or also, we have some scenes that we decided to not cut it because we have we have scenes, very crowded scenes with many people. So, but also, for some scenes, we decided to put our camera on a stable tripod and shoot in one shot, one lens, with not just changing the focus, anything. And sometimes you will find some scenes on film 1 minute without any movement, without any cut or changing focus, nothing. And any decision that we took regarding the lens or the angle or the movement of the camera is because of this story. And a story just led us regarding how we want to use our camera or having the specific lens for the specific scenes. We have a scene with our main character Sarah with the sub character at night. The only light is coming from the stove. So we decided to use a 50mm lens because they were just here without not a lot of movements, and 50 millimeter lens helped us to navigate because we decided to use the natural light there. And also we are happy about that. No movement, very private conversation between them and revealing their dreams. And that was also one of the decisions that we made regarding the story.
It's an example of really pure cinema verite, right?
Yes.
You're allowing the camera to witness the experience without trying to influence at all. And you did one camera for the whole film, right?
For many scenes, yes. But also for some very crowded scenes, we had additional camera because we didn't want to lose anything. For some aerial shots, we have some gatherings, we decided to have additional camera, and we were like, okay, just you, and I told them to only focus on some specific things because we were thinking about using some of them in the edit. But mostly, I can say 97% of the film only with one camera.
I want to give all of you a chance to throw some questions out here. So if anybody does have a question, don't be shy. I promise not to mock you. But please, throw up your hand and let me know if you got something. Yes, please, in the back. Gentlemen.
Yeah, thank you so much for your comments. Reza, I'm curious.
There's a microphone right there, sir. Thank you.
The political nature of your story, what kind of difficulties did you have with, and what kind of authorization did you need to get, both in the local village as well as the macro country of Iran?
So, of course, it's very, very hard to make films, especially documentary films, with this kind of stories in Iran. It was not, we got a lot of permissions. Even by getting permissions, it didn't mean that it's not like nobody can come to you and stop you from filming. Of course, it was a hard process. Making fiction films is easier because you have a script and then you just cover the story and filming in 2 months and that's it. But for our film, it was a long process of getting not just permission on paper, but also with villagers that some of them were not open about just being filmed there. Especially from the beginning, they were like, one couple coming here to make films, especially about women. So we are men, so just filming our women. No, it was a long process at the beginning. But later on, they accepted us as a couple with a camera. So, and it was a magic of us being as a couple, and we are a married couple as well. So it was a magic of both of us being there. I'm coming from a community. I know the dynamics and the culture and the language. And also Sarah, as a female, had the opportunity to enter to the women's community. Without her, it was not possible at all for me as a male director going there. So it's the dynamic between both of us and what we created, the bond that we made this film happen. Otherwise, it was not possible. So many of them accepted us as, somehow as villagers. After 2 sessions of filming there, and some of them invited us for a lunch or dinner, so we made a connection. But regarding the environment of just filming in Iran, the situation, I can say that it's too hard, especially for documentary films. Yeah.
I can see you got a burning question there. So at the end of the row, second row, there we go.
Alan, I think I'm not good with microphone, no? Sorry, it's just always like that.
Thank you for being here. And actually, I'm so sorry, but this question also maybe is for Mohammed. So actually back when I went to Columbia at the BFA program, so we actually studied Farouk Farrokhzad, and then The House is Black from Iran. And your film, I actually did a little bit research while you were talking. It's about challenging the status quo, especially in an extremely patriarchal society set in Iran. So during your documentary filmmaking, like were you familiar with some of her works? Because I'm asking specifically, The House is Black is this only film for Farakzad, which is a social outcast of a woman, and then like she shot and of the leprosy colony within Iran. Thank you.
Very good question. I love, maybe Sarah also. Yeah, sorry. Just, do you like to just participate to answer this question? About Forough Farrokhzad film, The House is Black, and you know, do you want to know?
So I'm curious if you guys are familiar with her poetry or her being a social outcast and like her whole film, or also like the poetry, literature, like accomplishments. But obviously she left too early, so were you familiar with her work? And was there some kind of connection between your film hyper focusing on the female lens versus Farakzad, like of her like personal experience?
Okay, thank you for your question, and sorry to intrude the conversation here. So, of course, Forough Farrokhzad is one of the most important contemporary female poets of Iran. And growing up, I loved reading Faroukh's poems, and I always carried a book of his poetry with me, even when I went to school. And on the break times, I would read, and I actually have a lot of her poetries memorized. But the film that you're referring to that was made in part with support from Ibrahim Golestan, who's also a very prominent filmmaker who passed away when he was 100, a few months ago actually, is a very beautiful social commentary. The House is Black is literally is a very, very dark movie at the same time. So maybe the influence was a big part of us growing up in this context, in this country, and in this literature. And maybe there was an unconscious relationship between the films that we made and the past, the past influence, of course. But there is nothing that I can say, yes, it was directly influenced by Forough, but of course, we are heavily influenced by Iranian literature and cinema.
Yeah.
And thank you for the question.
And what is important about Forough, and I recommend you to go and read some of her poetries, because she brought new ideas to the literature of Iran that were not acceptable by people. And she is one of the first women poets that brought new ideas. And also, we are here to talk about cinematography. Forough also brought the visual aspects and visual language to the literature of Iran. I remember one of her poetries. She's talking about, for me, in my mind, it's like a camera is panning. Just a man smoking cigarette, and then it's snowing outside, and then someone just carrying there. And, it's very, very visual. And it was very hard to find it in Iranian literature. And also, she was so brave. And I'm sorry that she died at a very young age. So I can find some similarities between Forough and our main character, because she's also very brave and she's doing something that is not acceptable. And also Forough was not, she was like a strange woman in her society. And her film is a masterpiece. And thank you for asking.
Sarah, I have a question. So, you were saying that you were shooting on the 24, which probably had like a bigger depth of field, and then when you were on the 55, you had that sort of magnificent bouquet. Was it ever a concern to be cutting back and forth between the two of them? Did you ever feel like you wanted to find a middle ground to make some of that cutting work, or was it like that's not a concern for continuity?
Yeah, that's a great question. Also, hi, Brent. So in our film, we use the 24 at the opening of the film. There's like 3 scenes that sort of establish our date characters. And the 24 is used as sort of the wider version of that. And the set has both a 24 and a 28. And the 24 opens up to about the same T-stop, T 1.3, 1.4, something in that range. And, so it feels honest in terms of, from a cinematic language, how that lens should feel in comparison to the 55. But interestingly, there is a moment, and we also, I totally forgot we used the 85 cut in actually with the 24. So the scene is like establishing shot, close up, establishing shot, close up, establishing shot, close up, all on a Dana dolly. And then, but interestingly, we in the world of the 55, we get back to our character's home where the dates are progressing without giving too much away. And there is a point where, originally we talked about a lot of different things. One was, what if we never see Dylan's character until the very end? And the whole thing is just told in these sort of like, and then, Spencer and Dylan said, well, let's capture it as a safety. And honestly, Dylan was so brilliant that there was no chance in the world that we wouldn't use it, because her performance without giving any dialogue is just like, it says more than what you're hearing just in, her reaction to it. But there is a point where we decided we want to see both of them sitting on the bed together. And there just wasn't room to make it work with the 55. So we actually went out to the 35. And an interesting fact between the FDs and the K35s is that the FDs have a much slower 35 millimeter lens. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it's a 2 something. And so I was a little concerned about it. It's also like, because they're stills lenses, they don't quite have the matching, and they're also older, they don't quite have the matching of like a modern cinema lens. But I wasn't too worried about the color differences, but I was a little bit worried, and yet it was the tool we had that could get done what we needed to get done. And I hadn't even thought about that until just now, so I guess it was okay.
Do you have any general philosophy about continuity and depth of field, or is it kind of like if it looks awesome, anything goes?
So a little backstory, Brent and I just did a feature together in July, so Brent knows a little bit about how I work.
So plant is what you're saying.
No, I did. I said,
okay, great.
I said, ask me these questions. The philosophy changes from film to film and story to story. Something interesting about Sweet Talkin Guy is that, between a feature and a short, there's like so much visual exploration you can do with a feature. You can, find different lenses for different characters or different scenes or different moments. And as you know, with your movie, we used Super 16 lenses cut in with standard Super 35 lenses. And there's just so much exploration you can do. And with the short, that becomes less so. And then with this short, it is 4.5 minutes long, and it is very clear in what it is. And it's like, this is the thing. So we basically had one visual element to explore, which is its weird own challenge for me, because I'm so used to like having some room of like, let's play with these lenses. Let's use the wide open lens for this emotion or this moment, and then maybe let's stop down for this because either there's a technical consideration of we want both characters in focus, or there is a more emotional component that comes out in sort of either maybe maybe we're trying to approximate human vision, whatever that means, and take that to a place. So, I do love a lens that kind of like gives me some options, especially as I open it up. And certainly the FDs like have so much that happens in the last stop or half stop. And I'm not just saying this to sell Canon lenses, but I did just shoot a feature in November on the CNEs, and it was the same situation of like, we did shoot a lot of the film wide open again, which I promise is not my only trick, but it worked again for the story. But what was interesting is like what I mean by wide open might be the quarter stop differences at the end of those lenses make a huge difference, especially when there's any light coming in flaring the lens, and I might want to increase that or decrease that. I think it's like, I think we get caught up too much in words with lenses about like, this is good or this is bad, and we should, think more about what the lens is doing and how you want the moment to feel. And if it's feeling right for the moment, just go with it, and don't worry about all the technical stuff too much. I think last thing, and then I'll. Something I realized, I don't know, in the last, maybe, I don't know, time is weird right now, but in the last several years, is I've always liked lenses that were a little bit softer. I've always been drawn to them. And I was thinking about the fact that I am supposed to wear glasses for vision, for distance. And it's, I can do well enough without them that I never wear them. And so I see the world soft. And so I like lenses that are a little bit soft because they feel correct.
That's amazing. That's absolutely phenomenal. I love that. So you are helping your audiences see the world the way you do through your glass.
As everybody should.
Absolutely. God, that's an amazing note to end this on. Sarah Mohammadreza, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for this. It was a great discussion. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for coming up and warming up a little bit. Enjoy the rest of your festival. Everybody be safe and have fun out there.